Okay, so this is a follow-up after I discussed the first PLC regarding where RTI is. I met with the principals, and now I'm bringing back the information to the first grade team. Okay, so in the previous meeting, we discussed instead of having someone pull for LLI, we talked about doing it together as a team, coming up with lists of students that need RTI and then breaking them down into groups by their needs. They approved that. That's a list that, we'll have to get for the next 6 weeks to them so that they can approve it. The other thing that we discussed was the step-by-step guide, which would include a uniform, base steps for tier 1, tier 2, and then tier 3 would actually be them getting tested. So they said for us to set that up, that would have to be approved by them and by the RTI specialist. When I asked why we didn't already have a step-by-step guide, they said that it was different for each grade level, and it's hard for them to say what each grade level needs to be doing because we all teach differently and we have different things that we're testing for and that type of thing. So if we came up with one, it would be easier for them. Then they went into saying that the reason why RTI takes so long for some students is because the more students that they have that are rushed into the RTI process, they usually end up being the majority of the behavior students, which means that they're in the office more. And even when they're in the office more, they're still losing instruction time. So being tested and all of that really isn't helping them because the focus first has to be on managing those behaviors and getting those students in control before we push them to be tested, which made sense. But then some of it I was like,
But we are not really talking about the kids that are our behavior. I'm talking about academically.
I agree with that, which is why he said that form would help us push that along. Right now, what they're seeing from the upper grade levels is that teachers are pushing those students that are predominantly behavior, and their behavior is so bad, which is why they're behind because of how they are conducting themselves in the classroom. So they're pushing them out of the classroom into the office, which is inevitably losing more time from instruction, which is putting them further behind. And, you know what I'm saying? Teachers can't give them those quote unquote accommodations because they're not in the classroom.
Right.
It makes sense for them. But again, that's why we're trying to go back and forth and develop our own plan for our students, because right now, like you said, we aren't dealing with those type of behaviors. Theirs are consistent. Ours are once in the blue moon when the child is not, feeling their best that day.
Right.
The other thing that they discussed, they like the 6 weeks per goals to track the goals. And they wanted to ensure that our documentation was where it was. So if we do start pulling students, they want us to have either a Google form that shows, hey, I got such and such students today at this time. They were with me for 15 minutes. This is what we went over. Something super quick that isn't going to take us a lot of time.
What I sent to y'all yesterday.
The Google Doc that you sent yesterday. Something super quick, but that they can track and say, okay, for some teachers that are saying we're doing this, but there's no evidence that you're doing it. That documentation will say, hey, this is what we did, for the whole 6 weeks. We met with them and the goal hasn't been met, or we haven't, even increased in anything. They did agree as well that hearing it from different teachers would be beneficial, because like I said, one of mine in here that I got to be a nut with and clown with all the time, that I have to, be goofy with and geeky and all the time. Sometimes him and I's relationship is now he feels like I have to play with him as versus somebody else. He's like, okay, he's more attentive because he gets a more serious note from them. I think that is what we had for. Do y'all have anything else? Like, what do y'all think would be our time frame on getting that step-by-step guide for the admins and RTI to be approved? What do y'all think? Is that be something we should try to implement by the end of this year, even though we have like 6 weeks left? Or should we get the plan set up to implement starting next year?
I would say starting next year, so we can make sure it's exactly how it needs to be and it can be ready to go. Like, not perfect, but
yeah,
like ready, and it's seamless and we know how it works,
So maybe start trying to mess with it the 6 weeks just to see if we could actually do it, and then like you said, try to a trial run.
I think we should start with the interventions as far as like moving kids around and stuff. We could start that right away, because, and I mean, I don't know about right away, but I know that like before the next 6 weeks starts, because we still got at least 6 weeks left.
Yeah, we're about to move into the fifth 6 weeks is starting Tuesday.
So then we
could put that together in about a week and a half. I would think, moving kids around, because I think I have 2 that for sure need to be pulled for RTI.
I think I have 4.
Okay.
I'd say I have a handful, so 5.
Yeah, I forgot to tell y'all, we're gonna have to really do that ourselves, because they have interviewed for RTI, for LLI aides, but they have been turned down 4 or 5 times because of the pay scale. So right now it looks like we're not gonna have an LLI aide for the rest of this school year. Mr. Williams did say that they were pushing for that budget to be more to get them in, because right now those ladies are saying that they make more as a sub than they do as an LLI aide, and it's less work for them. So they're turning down that job pretty quickly, which is understandable. And then they did say about the parent request as well. They said that it's just a different chain of command. The parents can request it, and we have to follow up that as soon as or in 45 calendar days, because that's, the legal side of it. As far as us, Mr. Williams said that some teachers kind of half step with the RTI kids, especially in the behavior form. Because they're like, I don't want to put in any extra work if this child isn't going to listen or to give that, attention back. So they just kind of push them out, which is why they wanted the documentation to cover, everything that we do with our kids. Because, I know we do a lot, but making sure that it's documented is going to help us make sure we get our students that actually need to be under that umbrella. And one thing that I wasn't a huge fan of, per the discussion yesterday with Mr. Williams, was that all those resources that we think are under that RTI testing, once they've been tested, really are not. So they still, like the people that come into our classroom would come in and kind of monitor and help, when they need it. They would still get pulled for LLI if we did eventually get an aide. But that quote unquote testing really only kind of hinders us with holding them back, or that type of thing. It's kind of like, okay, well, this is what they're under, and we kind of have to just let them.
So it's kind of just like a label. Is that what you're saying?
Basically, it's almost just like a label. I mean, there are accommodations with the label,
Right.
you know, and help
Like
here and there,
accommodations that
but
you do and-
not the one-on-one time that we want as a teacher for our lower babes to help with those gaps. So he went into us tutoring, even though we really don't like to, or that it's quote unquote after hours. He's like, those are the things that help our kids and get them up, and holding parents accountable for not doing work at home. So I think that's another thing we can discuss in our next meeting, is how do we get those parents to be accountable for their kids? Because right now the school is really just a glorified daycare, you know, and all of the negative things that parents put out there about the schools. How do we get the parent on board? How do we get the parents to buy into what we're trying to do with their kids? Because if the parents have negative aspects at home and they're telling it to those kids, and those kids come to the school and they don't want to put in the work and they don't want to do all of that because of everything that they're hearing with our parents, which is like a lost cause for us, because, you know, a lot of us are so tired and so overwhelmed. We're not going to continue fighting with the child that is giving so much pushback. We just, okay, you know, you go on, do your thing, and I'll make sure that the ones that want that attention and that want to learn are going to get everything that I can give them.
I think one of the problems with the parents is that they don't realize, or maybe it's, you know, on us, but they don't realize how much a first grader is expected to know. And so and they don't really understand the TEKS and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it would take a long time, but it would be so much better if we could say, hey, we need your kids to know 100 sight words. We need your kid, just like a list of like a checklist or something to give them at the beginning of the year, and be like, this is everything your kid needs to know. And
I mean, I'm sure that we could put that together, because parents get that for kindergarten roundup. You know what I'm saying? Like, they get the breakdown of what students are supposed to have, but then how, you know, you have half of your parents show up.
Mm-hmm.
Half of them, of that half, are not going to read that packet. You get what I'm saying? So how do we get them in? What we have to figure out some way to get them involved.
I think. Oh,
go ahead.
I think that what we could do is have a Zoom meeting or a meeting with the parents, have a PowerPoint or something that goes
at the beginning.
That even in at the beginning of the school year, and try to get them in. So like we could do things like offer like giveaways or something, or like a raffle, or like if they come, they can get like, their kid can get like an extra Dietz dollar, or you know, $5 Dietz, or
incentives. Okay.
I've seen like things where if the parents come to the parent night, they might get like a raffle for like a spaghetti dinner or something. And so,
I think we could do that. I think that's a good idea.
What I was gonna say, my previous school, they used to have a thing called, I don't know exactly what they called it, but it was like a TEKS night every 6 weeks, and the teachers, like as teams, would sit down with all the parents and explain like the TEKS that were going, the major TEKS that we would be going over for that 6 weeks, and make games out of certain TEKS, and there'd be snacks, and it would just be like a fun time for the kids and the parents to learn what they're doing at school, at the school, while the teachers were there to help and guide and explain.
I should like that. Almost like an open house.
Yeah.
Okay. That's definitely something we could go back. Because, I mean, again, the kids aren't going to get everything they need if we can't get the parents to buy in on it.
And I think that they want to, but they don't know everything. Because, like, even I'll go back to my mom with my niece. My mom, when she put my niece in kindergarten, she was like, they're not doing all this. Like, you know, when you were in school, or when you weren't doing all this.
Times have changed.
And so, like, if you think about it, how many of these parents just don't know? It's not that they don't care; they just don't know.
Yeah. Well, we can definitely go ahead and talk about that and see if we can get that set up for next year. Ladies, I appreciate y'all. Thank you.